So those that are clients of the AC or Jumpstart clients have certainly heard me prattle on about the importance of PR and the importance of respect and working with the media. So let's take a little deeper dive into, and we'll see whether I'm actually full of crap or not. So let's talk about journalism today and what it takes to get stories told. And I'll have to pass the mic down as we go. So I'm going to lead off with Natalie here. So the profession of journalism is changing a lot today, with less resources than ever before and the rising 24 appetite of news. How do you stay on top of the volume that's coming at you?
So when I actually tell people what my day consisted of when I was over at CTV Kitchener, they're like, you do all that in one day. It is not for the faint of heart. You're constantly on Twitter, on social media, Reddit, newspapers, magazines, books, always kind of reading, feeding your mind, but always kind of looking for that story. But, you know, with less and less people in the newsroom, but the demand is still high, you kind of just, there is a struggle. There is a struggle to kind of get deep into the stories that you do. And so you're just, sometimes it ends up being, you know, monkey see, monkey do, so surface journalism, unfortunately, because there is a bit of a struggle right now. But I think that everybody that's in the industry, they're doing the best they can with what they're kind of dealt with. It's a very fast industry and a fast job, so things are flying at you, and you just deal with it. But you know, students going into, I was an instructor at Mohawk College for a while, and students going into the program kind of know that this is what's expected of them at the beginning. They know that they're going to have to be in tune to social media. They know that they're going to have to be kind of having their fingers in all sorts of different pies. So it's kind of expected of you, and you know that that's what's happening, but you kind of live off of that, and you kind of enjoy it, and it's all part of the fun of it too. You got the adrenaline going nonstop, and so I've recently made a transition, and I'm kind of really enjoying having weekends off, which I didn't have a weekend off for 12 years, so or something like that. But so it's a bit of an industry thing that where you're really kind of in it. You're in it because you want to be there.
Okay, so let's explore it from the other side now. And I've got a question for Sarah. How many calls and pitches a day do you receive from PR folk and others, companies, who are looking to have their story told? And how many of those do you actually pay attention to?
Yeah, I'd say it varies from day to day, but 15 or 20 would be average. Usually a few phone calls from PR people, a lot of emails, and they range from just kind of mass emails from US PR companies to, you know, my own sources that I've been trying to cultivate and generate, and people in the community, other people in the newsroom sending me things. So it is a real battle to sort of stay on top of things and try to decide what to cover. Everything is urgent, and you have to kind of think, okay, what's really urgent, what's really important here, what's going to add value for our readership, and that's what we're always trying to do. But yeah, it's a lot coming at us, and I'm sure that for journalists who've been in the newsroom longer and longer, like your name gets on more and more lists and shared around, it becomes a lot to keep track of.
Terry, you kind of shot a look at Sarah when she said about 15 to 20. Have you thoughts on this one?
Yeah, for sure. I probably get between emails, phone calls, and packages arriving, probably averaging almost 200 a day. Yeah, it's crazy. I was really surprised. It's at 15.
Well, because I've been at the Globe like less than 2 years, right? So I think the longer you're doing something, the more people know you. So.
And it's really interesting. They range from these, I know Killian Rutledge is here from Exonifying, if anybody wants to know how to write a media release that is, I call them corporate haikus. They are short and to the point, and they're really well done. And just, you know, ask Killian how she does it, and she'll send you some examples, I'm sure. It's really easy to get hold of me. It's tpender@therecord.com. And I am interested in all startups in Kitchener, Cambridge, and outlying areas as far as Toronto, provided you have some connections to this region, even tenuous connections if it is a successful startup. And really doesn't matter what sector you're working in. I'd be interested in hearing pitches from you. If you don't hear back from me right away, don't sweat it. It doesn't mean I'm not interested. It just means I'm probably busy on something else. The landscape changes every day. I had to shuffle the deck this morning because of an embargo story I'm working on. Big announcement coming tomorrow from one of the most famous startups in the country. And this happens all the time. So just because I don't get back to you right away doesn't mean I'm not interested. And the times of year when I'm looking for feature articles that don't necessarily have a hard news hook are the summer and the summer months and at Christmas time. And the more notice I have, the better. So we can get the interview, get pictures, can translate the jargon and fact check it. And that's awesome. tpender@therecord.com.
Actually, I have another question for you, Terry. So what are the stories that most excite you? Like, what makes your spidey sense? Actually, that's a good question for the entire panel. We could maybe pass the mic down. So what we'll do is we'll start with Sarah. I'll let you all think about it, and then we'll work our way down. So what makes, I know me as a PR person, like a client will tell me a story, and I get like, I say it's my spidey sense. I just get this little like, oh yeah, that's good. So I don't know if it's the same for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an instinct, and also the Globe and Mail, we use a lot of data and analytics to look at past performance of stories to see what moves the needle. So, I mean, Globe and Mail is a newspaper, so wherever business issues intersect with news, taxation, government policy, that's the sweet spot for the Globe and Mail. Profiles of businesses, that's what everyone dreams of. We don't do that often, we do them occasionally. So yeah, I'm always looking for issues that impact a large number of companies around policy and taxation, that kind of thing. And also personal stories, founder stories. Alan's done a great job of flagging a lot of good ones for me that have a bit of emotional appeal to our broader readership. That's something I'm always looking for.
I'm looking for good stories that are not so much, mostly about technology, not about the technology, but about the people around that technology and what brought them to this point in their life where they created a startup and are now trying to build a business around it. And I find the stories, the best ones are the eureka moments and the personal journeys that people have been on that brought them to these problems, and now they're trying to solve them. For me, is the best story is the beat is more about people than it is about technology. Outside of this room, you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who could explain how a computer works, or let alone a quantum computer, and the technology. Really, I mean, it's just. It's not so much the technology I'm interested in, it's the stories around it and the people who are trying to bring it to to a wider audience.
I think what really floats my boat is, because I come from a visual medium, is how to kind of really just have how to put your story on TV. So if there's really good visuals, which I think that sometimes perhaps startups, businesses struggle with kind of communicating visually how this story or their story will is a benefit to a TV audience. But I really kind of enjoy taking a story and making it a visual story. For me, what I really like is hidden treasures, and I don't mean actually like buried treasure, pirate treasure, or anything like that, but just hidden treasures whether it's a volunteer in the community, people again, right? A really interesting story that I did a few months ago was they found a painting by a Canadian artist called Maud Lewis at the New Hamburg thrift store, and it goes for thousands of dollars, and it was going to be sold in a pile for like $3 or something like that. And so they're taking that, so that's a hidden treasure. I mean, that's literally a hidden treasure in piles of paintings. But I think visually, I agree with Terry as well, those eureka moments. If you can kind of have those eureka moments on video, then I think that's kind of exciting.
Obviously I'm interested in AI and machine learning, super hot buzzwords right now. Everybody wants to get into it. So if you're implementing machine learning or AI into your startup or trying to, then that's something that I would obviously pay attention to just because that's the thing that people want to be informed about right now. Me personally, the stories that get me excited are startups that are thinking about how to go responsibly into the future. So startups that are taking into account how to be more inclusive in their companies. I know Michael Litt wrote an op-ed, actually, I think it was in the Globe, about balancing community and the gentrification that often comes with being a tech company in a smaller city. So I like stories about that because I feel like we're at an interesting time right now where we can really create the future that we want. Like, we can think about how we're going to help all these people who are going to be displaced by AI. We can think about how we're going to build companies that's reflective of all people and not just a certain kind of person. So I think we have an interesting opportunity and the conversation's there. So that's the story. Those are the stories that really get me excited personally.
And I'm going to send it right back to Jessica, so she's going to love this. If a company or PR person is reaching out to you, what are the core essentials that they really need to provide?
Like high school. So I think about, like, very simply, just, who, what, where, when, why, how. When I look at your pitch, I should be able to know, like, right from the get-go what the story is going to be. So sometimes I'll get pitches with just a URL and it'll be like, hi, I launched this app yesterday, check it out. It's like, I don't have time to do your job for you. So, like, you gotta present to me, and you have to tell me, like, we reached this significant milestone. We got, like, 250,000 downloads. We have this big partnership with this company. We've got funding coming up. We've got new products in the pipeline. Those are the things that I'm going to look at, and those are the things that are a news hook. Because obviously, you're all looking for coverage for your companies, and you're looking to tell your personal story. But if I don't have an actual news hook, if I don't have something that's going to give me that headline where people are going to click on it, then I can't tell your story for you. So if you're thinking about it from the perspective of a journalist trying to craft a good story and trying to get the attention of other people, and if you even think about the stories that you read in the paper, like, what do you like about TechCrunch? What do you like about The Globe or BetaKit or whatever, and you look at the stories that they write, then you can probably get a better idea of how to tell your own story.
I know that I've gotten a lot of emails from people, or even from communications professionals, not you, Ellen, but who don't have they have a Monday to Friday a number and an address, and you can't get a hold of them on the weekends or at nighttime, which, being a journalist, is a 24-hour-a-day job, well, except for the time, I suppose, when you're sleeping, you're still dreaming about it. So you're looking for things on the weekends, you're reaching out to people, let's say, on a Friday night to maybe see if you can set something up for a Monday morning, or, a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. We're always looking for content on weekends, too. We struggle because the Monday to Friday, the bureaucracy, politics, all that kind of stuff happens Monday to Friday. So maybe a little kind of way in is if you can approach a news organization on the weekend when they're kind of struggling a little bit more for news, and kind of pitch it and say, hey, we're around, we're doing something this weekend, or we're available to talk, or here's our Monday to Friday number, but here's our after hours number. And we don't tend to use that information, we don't tend to abuse it. I think we respect people's times after, but if we can have a way to reach out and get in contact with them, I think that's very helpful as well, and may help people here too who are thinking about telling their stories, is just having the proper contact information. I can't tell you how many press releases I get, or how many emails I get, and I have to go and hunt their numbers down, or look for PDFs with their numbers on them, or look for, town hall meetings where their companies are listed, and I have to do all this hunting and I really have to want to do that for a story, right? So if you make it a little easier, then it may be a little easier for you guys as well.
Don't be an asshole. I feel the need to say that because in the 3.5 years I've been covering startups, I have run into many of them, and it puzzles me. I don't know if it's because Steve Jobs Tom's legendary Sphincter head set the tone. But I'll never forget early days on the beat. I get a call from the communications person saying, "Oh, you know, we're doing these great things down at the tannery. You should come talk to us." And I said, "Sure." And I come down to speak to their chief technology officer, which is an overblown title if there ever was one for this tiny little startup. They just did this 48 hours in the Valley program that Communitech runs. And so into the cafe walks the CTO with an Apple laptop open in his hand, and he promptly gives that to the communications person and says to me, before he shakes my hand even, he says to me, "I work for a global corporation. You write for a local paper. We're gonna have to make this quick." And I thought, this is going to be fun. So I turned on the tape recorder, and I had like 30 minutes of this unbelievable. This man was rude. He was a buffoon. He was just incredible. And I laugh about it to this day. And I used to play that recording at some dinner parties. And I just can't tell you. Needless to say, there was no story. And then several years ago, like 15 years ago, I interviewed a chief executive officer of one of the biggest tech companies around. And it was on the phone, and it was about 30 minutes long. And again, I was threatened and abused. And this person said to me, "Well, I'm going to go and talk to so-and-so about you." And I said, "Who's that?" Turned out it was a member of the board of directors for Torstar, who I can assure you knows nothing about me. And we did the story anyway, and I would play that interview at dinner parties. And do you believe this guy? And I can tell you that there's just no, I just don't get that. I don't understand it. And I have a very busy day today because of this embargoed story that I'm working on. And I reshuffled my deck to be here because of Ellen, actually. And Ellen was the opposite of these two Sphincter heads that I just talked about. And due to an unforeseen series of unfortunate events, one day I stood up some people for an interview. These were senior engineers at a well-established tech company, very, very busy professional people. And my phone died. It was just a nightmare. And Ellen, just took it all in stride and said, "Hey, we can reschedule this. Stuff happens. Don't worry about it." And when I got to the interview finally, a couple of weeks later, I apologized profusely, and all these engineers said was, "Terry, we're so happy to have you here. Just thank you so much for coming. And bread cast upon the waters will always return," to quote a Robert Heinlein novel. So don't be a Sphincter head.
Thank you. And to Nadia's point, in addition to not being a Sphincter head, do be accessible. There's nothing worse as a PR person than to pitch a story, get a reporter interested in that story, and have your contact disappear. And that has happened to me. Or the CEO will schedule, on the other side, schedule some time and then stand journalist up. Those are the things that absolutely drive a PR person to drink, believe me. And I've had more than a few bottles of wine in my lifetime. Let's do another one where we work down the line here. I think it's useful for folks here to understand that there's this concept of national news, there's a concept of local news, and there's a concept of industry trade news. With startups, I often encourage them, everybody wants to be in TechCrunch. Everybody's a Jones for being in TechCrunch. But I always ask the question, is that what your customer is reading? And so I always encourage them to look to align their PR strategy with what's going to drive revenue, where they need their stories to be. But I think it's helpful to understand how the different stories are composed. So how is a story composed for a beta kit, which is mostly a startup audience, versus the Globe, versus a local paper and local television station?
Yeah, I consider the Globe and Mail as, when I'm assigning stories, I think of different groups of people, not always the same. So I'm a small business editor, so I'm looking for either the stories that impact a lot of different businesses for our core business audience. Some of that stuff goes behind our paywall. We really want exclusive content. We don't want to just cover what everyone else is covering. We really want to get things first and be related to our key issues we're covering: trade, immigration, talent, hot issues like electricity prices, things like that. And then there's stories for a more general reader that I mentioned, kind of the more human, emotional stuff. So we are national, but a lot of our readers are in Ontario, BC, and Alberta, so those are the areas that I spend the most time thinking about.
Almost every story starts out as a local story. And I think the public policy questions can be interesting for me in how they impact a local startup. And when communications are done really well, the startup gets just a huge boost in profile. Tale of two startups, both in downtown Kitchener. I'll name the one that's doing a good job. I won't name the one that's doing a terrible job. So Vineyard is doing a great job. They have this in-house savvy communications person. Took part in pre-budget submissions in Ottawa, made a cogent presentation. The startup was named in the budget speech in the House of Commons, and then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau calls and he wants to hang out there for several hours. National coverage because of that. To me, that is like a grand slam home run, and it's all because of really smart, effective communications. A few blocks away is another startup. Smart people. They do not have in-house communications. It's contracted out to people in the States, which another thing that puzzles me. And 2 days after the federal budget comes down, I get this email from this San Francisco-based communications consultant for this very good startup in downtown Kitchener, saying, here are some quotes from our CEO about the budget. Feel free to use them in any story. Right? This is 48 hours after the budget has come down. I can't tell you, you think technology moves fast, news cycle moves a lot faster. And 48 hours, I mean, I'm just not interested. And it's ridiculous. It's, and that startup is paying $500 to $1,500 a month, maybe more, for a retainer for this, for these communications, which are doing nothing, absolutely nothing for the company.
I think from my perspective, because I worked so long in local news, we're always kind of looking and wondering, how does your story appeal to the people who are watching us? So what do the people watching the 6 o'clock news at home, what are they going to take from this? What value do you bring to them? Much like you guys have just been saying. Why do people at home care? 6 o'clock, you're sitting around your dinner table or perhaps chopping up your veggies to make your dinner. Why do you care? Why do you keep watching? So that's a question that we're always asking. And I know at CTV Kitchener, there were always 5 motivators we would literally say every morning in the story pitch, which is money, family, safety, health, and community. So when we're always kind of thinking, okay, which one of those motivators? Those are the 5 motivators that people care most about, just to backtrack a bit. So that's money, family, safety, health, and community. And so we'd always say, okay, so which one of those motivators does that tech startup or that business, which one do they kind of bring to it? So that's really our job to kind of figure that out. But if you guys are looking at pitching stories or kind of, helping us along, making it a bit easier for our day, thinking about that when you're writing your release or getting in contact with one of the reporters. But I think for us, it's just about local news and why, how does our viewership, why do they care? That being said, we've had lots of stories that we've done locally and they've gone nationally. And we're all really excited because sometimes we really believe that this story, everybody needs to know about it, just not people in this area, that it would be of value to lots of people everywhere. So it's really just about establishing that value of whatever you bring to the table.
So at Beta Kit, we think of ourselves more of the industry and trade type of publications. So we're always thinking about how the piece of news is going to affect our community. So, if we make an AI hub in Toronto or Montreal, what does that mean in the future? Like, are more people going to come in? And because we're so close to the community, we are thinking about, you know, the people in this room, like you would be our prime audience, but, you know, my friends in my hometown in Brampton are not reading Beta Kit, so I'm not thinking about them. So sometimes, like, I'll just go right into the jargon in my articles, and when people pitch me, sometimes they'll just, like, talk straight jargon, and that's okay for me, but that's just because, like, I'm in this world, and I'm living and I'm breathing it, and Beta Kit is also a startup too, so I understand the perspective of a lot of the people pitching me. So yeah, so basically anything that's going to affect our community and any, like, and yeah, I guess that's it.
Another one I'll work down the line on. I like this little debate that we've got going on. What are some big pitching no-nos, aside from being 48 hours late on a story? And what's the worst pitch you've ever received?
Yeah, I blocked out any specifics on the worst pitch, but the ones that really alarm me are, I feel like a lot of scammy type companies, they want legitimacy of being in the Globe, and they have some gee whiz health thing, and you know, we're cynical people, so anything like that, even if it's a great business story, I'm very wary of anything like that, because they're going to say they're in the Globe, and then they're going to use that to do other things. So those are the ones that alarm me the most. People sending me PDFs in the body of the email, and they want me to click. Like, we don't have time to, like, it should just be all there. I think a lot of people just think, oh, well, I need to promote this product, so will you cover that? Like, that literally is people's pitch to me sometimes. And it's like, no, my job is not to promote your product, and that actually makes me feel uncomfortable because my job is to take a critical eye and represent the interests of our readers, so I don't like to feel like I'm like doing a deal with you to promote your business. That's your problem, and you need to bring what advice or what information our audience needs to the table, not just your own needs.
That's a great question. I remember getting this pitch from somebody in the States, and I'm sure it was a bot. And it starts off saying, "We really like your tech blog." I don't have a tech blog. And so that just went downhill from there. And the other one that I really don't like is trying to hang a story and a pitch on a crowdfunding campaign. You know, not interested in the fact that you are about to launch a crowdfunding campaign after it's done, and you're doing something with that money. Then is the time to reach out, not before. And it just drives you to distraction when these smart people send me an email saying, "We've got this great idea, we're going to launch a campaign, begins next week, and hey, can you write a story about it and give us some profile?" And 99% of the time the answer is going to be no. Just wait until you run this campaign and you raise your money and you're starting to do something with it, and then reach out.
I can't really remember any really bad pitches, because if they're really bad pitches, I don't pay attention to them. I just gas them and away you go, right? If you get links off Twitter, or come check this out, or cover this event, it means nothing to me. I've established no relationship with that person, and I've established no value in it again, right? So I just toss it. So I couldn't tell you an actual pitch that's bad. One thing that I know that gets our cackles up is when people have events or protests. I mean, that doesn't really kind of fall into this audience, but they say, "Are you going to be there? Because if you're not going to be there, we're not going to have this event or this protest." Well, then it becomes a non-issue, right? So, but I think if I can flip it on the positive side, that I think you're more likely, at least locally here, I can speak to my former co-workers. They're a very passionate bunch, and we're all a very passionate bunch. And I think that if you can establish a relationship with a reporter, I've had someone come up to me at Kitchener City Hall when I was doing something on refugees, someone who was starting something up at the University of Waterloo, and says, "I have this idea, but I don't know how to go about it." That particular day, I happened to have a couple of extra minutes and kind of listened to what this person was saying, and gave them my business card, told them some ways, some things to do, and before they pitched it, told them, "Okay, if you got this, this, and this in place, then let's talk." So if you can establish a relationship with a reporter, with whatever beat you have or whatever community you're in that you really want to do that, then it's going to be more beneficial for you guys. If you're in a larger national kind of audience, maybe it's not as easy to do that. Locally, I think that you have a better chance to establish that relationship with reporters. We're always hungry for new ideas. We're always hungry for new stories. So really it's about establishing a relationship with a reporter or even from a communications perspective. I'm more likely to do a story on someone that I have a relationship with. It's a give and take kind of thing. So if I know someone helps me do my job better, then I will be more inclined to listen to whatever they have to say. And so other things I've noticed is that perhaps is, again, not telling me the value in the email of why it's important, why the story is important, is really kind of focusing in on that value and communicating it.
Yes, I also don't really remember some of the bad pitches I get because, usually I've gotten to the point where it's like 5 seconds in, I just archive and I can already tell that it's gonna just be garbage, and also that speaks to the attention span that we have, I think. But like I said before, just sending a link and being like, oh, go check this out and like tell me what you think, and I don't have time for that, I'm not going to do that. I think a big problem with pitching stems from not understanding who you're pitching to. So I get a lot of American pitches, and Beta Kit doesn't cover US companies. I'll get pitches for like, oh, what's the hottest new apps on the iPad? We don't cover apps, and so I get pitches like that waste my time and waste their time with them trying to get coverage. So I think if you read a little bit about what the reporter you want to pitch to covers and what their interests are, then you can tailor your pitch to them. But if you're just kind of doing a blanket pitch for everyone and you're CCing other journalists on one email, which has happened to me before, then that's probably not going to work. So yeah, so just know your own audience that you're pitching to, and just try to think about what the story is before you start pitching.
It's much like a resume or cover letter, right? You do each one individually for each kind of different media outlet. They have different needs and requirements. For us specifically, we're visual medium. We need to know what visuals go along with that and who's going to be there and who's going to be able to kind of fulfill that. So it's just you tailoring your communications to each one of the news outlets seems a bit cumbersome, but maybe even streamlining that so you're only doing one or two and really kind of focusing in and doing the homework ahead of time.
Don't lie. And I feel the need to say that because I used to cover demo days once in a while, and one of the reasons I don't anymore is that this company came out, they had gone through basically every accelerator in the region here, an incubator, and they were now being pushed out into the world. And the founder and CEO at this demo day says, I have raised $2 million. So that's actually significant, and if nothing else, that's worth a story in the local paper. A startup is going out in the world with $2 million in their pockets. And I call and I dig down into that a little bit, just scratch the surface, and guess what? It's not $2 million in investment. It's a combination of investment and some companies buying their product. Well, those are two very different things. And if I can't trust, that information, then I'm not going to do a story. And not only am I not going to do that story, I'm not going to do any other story on it because I can't believe anything coming out of your mouth. And it was really frustrating because I'd asked the question 3 or 4 times. Saying, I need to know, how much of this $2 million is investment and how much coming from, companies buying your product. And they just outright refused to answer the question. And so I just outright refused to do the story. And not here today would I name the people involved, but I can assure you when I'm talking to people one-on-one, I do. And I can't stress that enough. Your reputation and your word is very, very important. And if you mislead, exaggerate, or lie, then it will not do you any good.
Yeah,
Yeah, just to add to that, it really is all about building relationships with people. If you think about it, your company, there's probably only 2 or 3 journalists that are really relevant to you. It's worth it just to get the time to know those people. I love to go for coffee with entrepreneurs. I don't always have time, but when I do, I schedule things out or I do phone calls with people in different regions. And I'm looking for, if I make that investment in time, I'm looking for people who, it's not just their own story. They're going to start feeding me information on other companies. I'm going to be able to send them an email when certain news events happen. Have you heard about this or that happening in your region? And then, yeah, when that company has an announcement or they've raised money and then they contact me, then I feel like, oh, okay, I know who these people are, and I feel like I'm going to listen more closely than if it's just a random pitch. And even, like, I like to hear directly from entrepreneurs as well, because there is so much PR people contacting us, and I like to just, when people are open and honest with me and they're going to reveal a little bit about their business, those are the kind of people I'm looking to build bridges with.
Yeah, I think tech startups sometimes get in their own bubble, and I always say to founders, don't start. You can write your own press releases, but don't start reading them and believing them. So, I think it's really important to sort of stick your head up once in a while and really pay attention to what's going on in the news, because as you were saying, Terry, you can miss a news cycle that can be happening. So, really important to also be a news junkie and to really stay conversant. So, people that aren't spending time on Twitter paying attention to what's going on in the world, or figuring out how their startup maybe relates to something that's happening out there. So, obviously if you were doing technology that is anti-terrorism related, now would be a great news cycle to be talking about that, right? So, unfortunately. I'm going to pass it back down to Jessica, because Terry had touched on this around crowdfunding. You have it right in your Twitter profile, no Kickstarter campaigns. I get it so often. I would love to shove a sharp pencil in my eye every time a startup comes to me with a crowdfunding, and I tell them that all very honestly. So I'd like to understand why that isn't a news story for BetaKit either.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, just because I still get pitches about Kickstarters, despite the fact that it is right there in my bio. I feel like my Twitter bio it's just kind of a joke, because it just shows that people will want to get coverage, and they'll be all like, oh my gosh, I'm such a fan of BetaKit, and I would love if you wrote about us, and then they send me irrelevant pitches like Kickstarters, and then it just shows they don't even understand the publication or like what they're trying to do with their PR strategy at all. So it's not that I have a personal vendetta against Kickstarters. And I actually have covered Kickstarter campaigns before. Like youve had the biggest hardware Kickstarter campaign in history. Like that's a cool newsy piece of that's a cool newsy thing. But if someone just launched their Kickstarter yesterday and they raised $5 and they're looking for awareness, that's not helpful to me at all. So again, it's not the Kickstarter, it just stems from not understanding what I'm looking for, and you really just come across as just a person who just wants the glory of the story, but you're not actually focused on your company and your product, and that shows in your pitch. And I think that founders, getting media attention is really good, and I love telling your stories, but I feel like if you are a founder that's focused on your product, understands your product, and you can tell that story really well because you're passionate about it, then that's going to show in your pitch. You're not going to send nonsense like, oh, we raised $5 on our Kickstarter. So it's more of that issue rather than the Kickstarter itself.
Sarah, so you're part of a much larger team that covers technology at the Globe. So you're the small business editor, but there's others that cover technology. Can you just sort of describe how does a print story unfold at the Globe, and what does that team look like, and who's most interested in what kinds of stories?
Sure, yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion. The Globe can be a really hard place to know who to go to. Sean Silkoff is our reporter who covers a lot of the bigger tech companies and a lot of the news around venture capital and the government's innovation strategy. He's in Ottawa. Shane Dingman covers our more consumer-facing technology, Apple launch products and things like that. So I'm a small business editor, so I do some of the startup stuff. There's a startup hub under the Small Business Hub on our website. So yeah, I'm looking for, interesting companies that are a bit against the norm and kind of more trend type stories. What was the other Oh, the process of the print story. Yeah, when I assign stuff, I don't even know if it's gonna ever go in print. Maybe my workflow is a little bit different than some people because I'm not so much a beat reporter, but I'm an editor. But I assign something, I'm thinking about the web, and in some cases I'm thinking if it's a more businessy, serious story, it will go into the report on business print. Some of my stuff ends up in other print sections as well if it's more fitting for Toronto or even real estate. So in my case, I come up with a lot of the ideas and assign them to my freelancers. Sometimes they pitch me ideas. Typically it's coming from these beat reporters and their relationships on the beat. They know what are the key issues of importance to them, and so they're working through their networks for publicly traded companies. There's information put out through releases and stuff that's sparking news as well.
It's really easy at the Waterloo Region Record. You send an email to tpender@therecord.com, and then we'll take it from there. You can follow up with a phone call too if you like. Usually for feature articles, business profiles, I like more lead time than less. Also, if you have people who are savvy in communications, they will be following the trends, provincially, nationally, internationally, and tie what's going on at the startup to those trends. And sometimes it's absolutely amazing what happens. There's someone at Sortable, Brendan Sherritt, I believe, who last fall, he does this release saying that Trump's pending election in the U.S. We are encouraging American techies to apply at Sortable. I don't know how much and resources Sortable actually put into that American recruitment campaign, other than Brendan's media release. But we covered it. Canadian press covered it. Did you guys cover that too? Don't know. You covered it. A lot of people covered it. It was turned into a national story because he tied, what was going on at that startup to an international story. You don't have to be targeting a presidential election. It can be something like the federal budget or downtown redevelopment or the gentrification that sometimes comes along with startup ecosystems. And if you can tie what you're doing to those wider trends, then you can very quickly, and I mean quickly, 24, 48 hours, we can get a story in the paper.
Do you want to kind of answer that from a broadcast? Yeah, so I want to break it down into two different elements. I'm just going to kind of explain the structure of how our newsroom works, which is very similar in any other kind of community that you work in, and editorially. So structurally, our newsroom is made up of all VJs, video journalists. So we do our own camera work, we do our own chase producing, our own writing, our presenting. We do it all except for editing, but that is coming. It's all made up of VJs. All the VJs are usually trained on lots of different other kind of roles. So sometimes you're reporting out there in the field, sometimes you're doing other things. There's an assignment editor and a news director and a producer. And so every morning we that's the structure of it. So every morning we have a news meeting around 9:30, and in that news meeting we kind of talk about things that are happening Canada, Ontario-wide, and in our community. As reporters, as VJs, we're expected to bring pitches to the table, and our boss had a minimum three pitch rule there for a while, which was very hard to do. But you're expected to have a pitch in the morning. If you don't have a pitch, then you may get voluntold or delegated as to what you're going to be doing that day. So that editorial meeting starts at 9:30, usually finishes if we're tip-top around 10 o'clock. Then there's two things that happen. Either you're filing for the noon news, which is 2 hours away, or you're filing for the 6 o'clock news. And there's a specific type of story that goes for the noon news, and there's a specific kind of story that goes to the 6 o'clock. If it's an easy turn-around story, crime court, politics, taxes, that kind of things, if it's easy, something coming from Ontario, it usually goes towards the noon news. If it's something that's a little bit more legwork and you have to interview more people, you need more time to do that, that usually goes to the 6 o'clock news there. But for our perspective, it's different. I feel like paper and websites, they have the ability to do so much more because I feel anyways, personally, because you don't always have to constantly think about visuals, how the story captivates people's attentions on TV, right? So that's pretty much how it breaks down is kind of, so, sorry, let me just backtrack a bit as a VJ. So if you're filing for 6 o'clock news, then basically you take from 10 till 12 to make some phone calls, read up on whatever subject you're doing, try to get as expert as possible in 2 hours. Do a little bit of homework if you didn't know what the story was before, and then you basically go out around 12 o'clock and start building your story visually and doing interviews. So we normally always we work through our lunches. There is no such thing as a lunch break in our business. And we're expected to be back at the station around 3 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So if we leave at 12 and we get back at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's 3 to 4 hours to drive somewhere, interview, get visuals, go to the bathroom, maybe get a coffee, and head back and start writing your script and turning it around for a vet that has to be ready at least 4:45 in order for it to be your producer to look through it, or your news director. And then from 5 to 6, it basically goes into editing, and you better be certain that your story is in its time slot or heads will roll kind of thing. So that's our day. I just wanted to kind of explain that because a lot of people don't understand it's kind of mythical, what a TV reporter kind of does. I've had a couple people in the community say, wow, I had no idea you worked so hard. Because I do, I actually sweat quite a bit. So it's a challenging job, but it's exciting nonetheless.
Wow, you all have so many resources. I'm so jealous. Yeah, so like I said, Baby Kit is a startup, so our process is not as lengthy as that, although I wish it was. So we're online only. We have no print products, so we can move a little bit faster. So I'll just basically check my emails when I'm on the streetcar at 9 a.m. and I'll see if anything's incoming, or I'll see if anything broke that day, and then I'll kind of move stuff around that I already had planned that day depending on if there's breaking news. So if I have things planned for 8, 9, and 10 a.m. to go up, if something about the budget drops or something crazy happens, then I'll just move everything and I'll just focus on that. So my day is very dependent on what pitches I get and what happens at that time. And Trello is basically my life. It's without it, honestly, I wouldn't even be able to do my job. But yeah, like I said, because we're a startup and we're small, even though Douglas is the editor-in-chief, he's also a founder, and he's focused on partnerships, and he's focused on a lot of other sides of the business. So he has the final say on everything, but as a news editor, it's my job to just vet everything. And I'm writing, I'm managing our contributors across Canada. I'm checking the news every day. I'm scheduling tweets. I'm editing. So I'm basically just doing everything. So our process is very, just take things as they come, especially because we're online, we can be a little bit more fast-paced. And very much dependent on whether you're going to give me pitches that's going to make me drop everything that I'm doing. So yeah, and I'm pretty much doing that from 10 a.m. until 10 p.m. at night. So yeah, that's my day.
You guys are doing fabulously. I'm just ticking off all my questions here. This is awesome. Got a question for you, Terry. What can you explain for the group what on the record and off the record means?
That's a great question. If you're ever speaking with a reporter and you say to that reporter off the record and then start talking, this is not a good idea. There really is no such thing as off the record, and at least for me. And if I were to tell you, yeah, we can go off the record here, that's just not true. So what is up for negotiation might be attribution, timing, those things you can talk about and we can negotiate. But everything I hear in an interview is fair game to go into the story. So think about that before you meet with a reporter. And any reporter who says, I think we can go off the record, don't worry about it. I would take that as a warning, a very, very serious warning. There is really no such thing as off the record. And there really and there are good reasons for that. We, for 15 years at the record, we had a policy that there would be no anonymous sources quoted in stories. And that has changed just a little bit lately with a new editor, but it has to be on a case-by-case story, and it's very, very rare. We believe that people we interview have to take responsibility for their words as much as we take responsibility for reporting them. And off the record and unattributed stuff and stories it doesn't work. It can be very dangerous. The most infamous example I can think of was Judith Miller at the New York Times in the lead up to the war and the invasion of Iraq, where she quoted many senior security service and White House officials, all anonymously, all assuring the world that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and we had to go in there and get these weapons out. And that was all complete, unadulterated bullshit, and did enormous damage to newspapers and journalism generally. And so I support this rule at the paper, 100%. There really is no such thing as off the record. And if you're going to talk to me, be prepared to have your name in the paper. And the general rule that I heard a long time ago is don't ever say anything to a reporter that you are not prepared to see on the front page the next day. Just avoids a lot of problems for everybody.
Just from a broadcasting perspective, if you're mic'd up, the mic is always hot. You see plenty of bloopers of reporters saying all sorts of obscenities on YouTube because they forget, because they're so accustomed to it. But I've had incidences personally where people forget they have microphones and I catch them saying all sorts of lovely things about me, one way or the other. So that mic may lead me to be less kind to whatever story I put out, or burn your bridges that way. Also, I mean, it is kind of a trick of the trade is to leave that microphone on to get that really natural, because once you wear the microphone, you forget that it's there, and you open up, you're not so formal and not so staring down into a camera. Because we're a visual medium, we kind of follow you along if we're getting some B-roll, and we want you to kind of relax and put your guard down and kind of be natural. That being said, lots of F-bombs, and I've heard people say all sorts of different things because I'm not in the room. I've stepped out of the room to go follow someone out, but the microphone's on that person, and I can still hear them because I'm wired into my ears. I can hear them saying something about a question I asked them and how much of an, this or that I am because I asked them a question. Meanwhile, I'm in the other room, and it's a fun story. I come back into the room and go, "Can I grab that microphone from you?" And they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe, did you just hear that?" And I'm like, "I did." And they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "Damage is done."
T-Pender at the record.com.
Quick question for Sarah. What is fair game? So, stories written in the Globe, you don't like it. Is it okay to go back to the editor and say, change the story? Or maybe there's a mistake in the piece. Where are people on safe ground?
Yeah, this is a good question, because if you are building a relationship with journalists, you don't want to then go and ruin it by quibbling with a bunch of little things in the story. If there are inaccuracies, we want to know about those, but if it's like you didn't like that adjective, we're not here to do marketing for you. That is not our job, and you have to understand that there's a process for correction. So, I don't want to have to go through that process. But if there is, inaccuracies, we do want to know about that. But other than that, just leave it.
100% what Sarah just said. Any mistakes need to be corrected right away, and we'll do that. Outside of that, however, I would not complain about this, the story, just because you don't like a couple of adjectives or the tone. But if there are errors in fact, then you need to get in touch right away.
If I can just address something slightly different, because I think you guys have brought up valid points, no point in me repeating it, but one thing that always used to irk me is when I would do a story and I would approach someone within that group to do a story, and sometimes it's by chance, sometimes it's because I've talked to them, and say, hey, can I do a quick interview with you about X, Y, and Z, what we just finished talking about? They're like, oh, the story's not about me, it's about a bigger purpose. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let me decide what the story is. I will put the whole picture together, I will paint the picture, I just need the information, and then I will disseminate it. So I think that's, from my perspective, we used to get a lot of people, and still get a lot of people trying to control the message, and that's not what happened, so.
Good points brought up here already. The one other thing that I will address is don't ask to see the story in advance. I know, like we're just not going to send you the story in advance. That's something that you do. You can put your press releases through all the verification that you want, you can put it through all the channels that you need to, but once you give that story to a journalist, it's our story and we're going to write it in the way that we think is the most appropriate and the most relevant for our audience. And often we know how to tell the story in a way that's going to be the most interesting to like our audience and like get you the most reach that you're looking for anyway. So please don't ask us to see the story in advance, because the answer is no.
I wonder whether now that's where the mistrust comes from, right? Where people don't know what's going to be published, so they're afraid, so they want to hold on to their stories and they want to control it and stuff. But again, that's where establishing a relationship with a reporter and really knowing how that person kind of ticks and what they're looking for, that will help in the end.
And I think to Terry's point, don't say anything that you don't want to see in print. That's the number one rule. And that sort of gets rid of the control freak thing, a little bit anyways. Got two last questions, and then we'll wrap it up here. I'll turn it over and see if there's any questions that we didn't address for the audience. One for Jessica, just more startup related. You mentioned AI, machine learning being a very hot topic. Are there things other than Kickstarter that are dead to you? And then also, just being very familiar with the Canadian startup scheme, are there standout companies for you? Companies that work really, really well with the media, they're telling very good stories. What are they doing right?
Sorry, you're asking if there are other topics that I just won't cover?
We're actually talking about really cool things that you're interested in.
Really cool. Other than that, really interested in government investment in startups and how startups are working with the government, just because, I feel like we all need to work together to make this ecosystem really work. It's going to take a lot of players, and it's not just going to take private or public investment, it's going to take both of it. So any story that addresses kind of this ecosystem shift and change, whether that's in fintech or AI or any other industry, I'm really interested in that. Again, not so interested in consumer electronics or apps or that side of things, so I'm just not gonna even address that. Sorry, what was the second part of your question? Who's doing well in PR, right? So just by our headquarters being in Toronto, I work with a lot of Toronto companies. So I know Terry addressed this during the panel as well. Companies that have in-house PR, I tend to work really well with them. So I work with Wealthsimple, Wattpad, and League a lot because they have in-house PR, and that's because they're living and breathing the product, and they can kind of walk around and they can talk to the product people and engineers and be like, oh, so like, what are you doing and why is this important for the user? And they have that understanding of the product so that they can sell that vision. And I'm not saying that outside PR can be bad, because I work with other PR firms like 80 Creative, and I work with Ellen, and they're really good at telling the stories of tech companies and getting to the bottom of the message they're trying to send. In-house or out-of-house PR is like up to you, and it's up to your budget, and it's up to what you think is right for you. But just make sure that whatever method that you choose to employ, that person has an understanding of like what you're doing, and they have some experience in telling that story to a tech audience, and for us anyway.
Can I add something? Yeah. So I find that the in-house communications people do the job 100 times better than these firms that are if I offend somebody, too bad. But, around the startup ecosystem, there are other businesses that have popped up and that are not adding any value to what the startups are trying to do. And unfortunately, communications can be among those parasitic businesses. And I have seen incredibly inept pitches, and I get this email from this communications firm in the States that's representing a very famous Canadian startup, a very, very famous one. And it mentioned a buzzword, AI, they're going to put this in their platform, well, it's going to be cool. And I said, well, I'm interested, talk to me a little more. Didn't hear anything back, and then I don't know, 10 days later, I did another one. Yeah, we're just about ready to do this story now. And I said, great, here's my number, call me, this is interesting. And then I get an email from the corporate director of strategic communications for this very famous Canadian startup saying, oh, we're so embarrassed about this, Terry. We actually don't use this firm anymore for obvious reasons, and because they didn't know what was going on. And it was, it is astounding to me to have to see these really, really smart people hiring, I don't know what to call them. They're almost like confidence people. They're taking your money and they're adding nothing of value to your companies. And I would urge you to be very, very careful about that, and to look at a very early stage to get a very good communications person in-house who will learn about your technology from its very beginning, and will be able to know everything that's happening to it in its evolution, and all the challenges that you're facing in its development, and the stories they come up with will populate the website, social media, your media outreach, your pitch to investors, and when it's done properly, it'll raise your profile, it'll help you recruit and retain talent, and get customers and get investors, and when it goes wrong, you wind up being a laughing stock at my dinner party when I'm playing a recording of this absolute nonsense that's coming over the
Boy, just remind me to watch my step around the chair. That's actually very consistent with my advice to the startups here is, bring somebody on in-house and learn what's involved. Learn what it's like to actually work directly with the media, and learn that level of respect. And then if you need an agency at some point for additional arms and legs, you have someone inside that is able to direct them appropriately, so that they're not flailing off on, sort of like an unattached left arm. And I do think the agency model generally, is kind of a bit of a bait and switch. You always end up with the, senior people that are selling the story, and then you get the PRP, the juniors who are I call them PPPs, per PPR people, who just hound until the story is told. One final question to wrap up, because I'm sure the natives are getting restless here. What's the biggest change in the journalist's profession, in the journalism profession these days? And we talked a little bit about this before. And how's it affecting the way you work and you're developing your stories? I'll just kind of work down the line and then we'll run on.
Yeah, well, it's no secret that there's tough times in the journalism industry now. So, the Globe, we're relatively well positioned. But we still have less people in the newsroom than we did a few years back. So sometimes there are key beats that are not covered. There's more people juggling multiple beats, and the ratio of PR people to journalists keeps going up and up. I don't know what the numbers are now, but there's probably at least 10 of them for every one of us. So it gets to be a lot of people trying to pitch a limited number of outlets, which just adds to, I think, the feeling of overwhelmedness that journalists can get often.
There's never been a better time, in many respects, to be a reporter, and that's because of the web. My stories, I get feedback from all over the world, and I started as a reporter in 1984, And you'd be lucky if you got 6 phone calls saying, hey, I read your story, I thought it was pretty good. Now I get feedback literally from all over the world, positive and negative, very quickly, and sometimes months later. Just when it goes out on the web, it lives for a long time, if not forever. The challenge, of course, is the loss of advertising, and it's up to the business end to figure that out. When I started at the Record in May 2000, we had 80 people in the newsroom. I think we're down to 28 now. So it's a big, big reduction. But my job really hasn't changed. And I just marvel at the influence that comes with the web. But on that note, sorry, I don't mean to hijack it, just for a minute though. When I started in the business in '84, I mean, the Cold War was on, and I was born and raised during the Cold War, and the Soviet Union didn't fall until August 1991, and it collapsed in 3 days without a single shot being fired, without nobody being killed, and the world changed, and it was astounding. It caught everybody by surprise. And I couldn't imagine, as a kid growing up, and well, until I was 30 years old, that the world would ever get out from underneath this threat of global nuclear holocaust. And we did. And it's just amazing. And to me, there are a few better examples of the imperative that change is going to happen, and that I can't imagine a world without Google today, but I could not imagine a world without the threat of nuclear war for the 60s, 70s, and 80s for the first 30 years of my life. And so Google's on top right now, but it won't be forever. Pretty much guarantee that. And it'll be people in this room and people like you who probably bring that about. And if you have good communications people, they will know my email address, which is at therecord.com.
I think for CTV Kitchener, I don't speak for them anymore, or do, but they, for the longest time, our bosses and higher ups would say we were the model of how news would be done across the CTV affiliates across the country, because we were doing more with less. So we were all VJs, essentially. They were phasing out, they've retired the last reporter who just goes out with a camera person. So we're all VJs, we're presenters, we're writers, and everybody else is trained in sports, weather, radio. That's why I've got a long list of things that I've done. But nobody really has a beat anymore, which is, I don't know, I think there's some loss of value there as well, because if you have a beat, you really get to know the community. In our particular, or in the former, where I worked at CTV Kitchener, nobody really had a beat, except for Crime and Court. That's a beat that seems to keep growing. So we're really just doing, the smaller newsrooms means you're doing more with less, essentially, which means as someone who's trying to pitch us or trying to get our attention, you really need to get our attention. Sometimes we have all the time, we have short attention spans, so if you email us and we don't reply, it's because we're busy that day or because we're running around trying to get something done that day. But if, a couple days goes by and it's a gentle reminder, a phone call, something like that to get in touch with us. So really, it's people have to do more to get our attention. That being said, the people, my coworkers, my former coworkers at CTV Kitchener, they're having to do more with less. So they're struggling right now to kind of to fill and kind of find out where their niche is and stuff. But I think they're doing it relatively pretty good, considering all things that's happened. We've lost probably close to 20% of our workforce in the last month, which for a small medium newsroom. Small newsroom is a lot. 14, 15 people, close to 20 people, I think, when you have only 80 people working in your shop is a lot. And people there are going through a lot of things right now. So it's just a small newsroom and they're doing more with less.
Yeah, I think the biggest change is the fact that, so I went to J school at Ryerson in 2010, And by 2014, my degree was already pretty much useless. I specialized in magazine journalism. Yeah, yeah, I specialized in magazine journalism, so I was totally focused on print. I learned how to do CERT. I learned how to, I hired a bunch of people, and I was just very focused on the print product. And I didn't know anything about WordPress, SEO. I didn't know any of that stuff because my dream was to be a fashion journalist for some reason. So I graduated, and I feel like even the J school didn't even know how to cope with this shift to online, because I was in second year in 2011, and they're teaching us how to use Twitter, and we're like, we've been on Twitter for years. I've been on Twitter since I was 16. I don't need to learn how to use Twitter. So I think so everyone's trying to, we're all trying to cope with it. There's a lot of restructuring happening. I did an internship at Chatelaine, and there was a lot of people were leaving pretty regularly, and it's a pretty scary and anxious time for a lot of us who are used to that tradition of having a steady print job and product. But at the same time, I feel like it's also really exciting for journalists because we have a really interesting skill set where we can tell stories in the way, I guess in a really effective way. So, whether that's comms at a tech startup or, like Stuart Butterfield has a philosophy degree. I mean, I feel like we can take these skills that we have and these skills of thinking differently, and we can apply it, especially in the tech space, which is very versatile and is more forgiving about the fact that you may not have all the skills that you need going into a job. I got my job at BetaKit just by sending an email and being like, hey, do you need a writer? Because I can write, and then I just got it. So I feel like if you know where to look, and if you know in what ways your skills are relevant to a position, then we'll be okay, I think.
That was amazing, guys. Are there any questions, burning questions from the audience? Oh, there's one. Okay,
Thank you. First of all, I would really recommend emailing Terry. He was the one who put us right front and center, and it has been awesome. And he was also very helpful. And I wasn't flattered, he was super helpful. And my question for all of you guys is, when you're doing news stories, what I have seen is the more edgy or to the extreme, more outrageous the story, the more it gets picked up from multiple newspapers. So just advise on how we can do it the right way so that we don't end up on the wrong side.
What do you mean by outrageous?
So, the very extreme example of that is the leader of the free world right now got his initial press because he said a lot of bad things about certain section of people, but it ended up giving him so much coverage. On a morality side, that's a very wrong thing to do, and that's something we don't want to do. But we want to know, if that's the extreme, what is the boundary which we should remain under? Okay.
So I think what he's talking about is really conflict in the story, and I think a little bit of the news cycle as well.
Yeah, definitely companies do interesting things that gets noticed, right? There's a lot of just, we don't really want to hear about incremental internal things. You have to have something that is interesting. So we're always looking for that ear of what would just get people talking. What are people talking about at the water cooler, right? Even business news to a certain extent. We want to know what's going to move the market, move companies. We want people who do have a point of view. Those are the people that I tend to gravitate to, but it doesn't necessarily need to be offensive, right? But somebody who is knowledgeable on, the federal government policy around innovation and has a strong point of view of what's working and not working, that to me is a good example of how to be topical and still be adding value.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks for your kind words. It's much appreciated. Do not take Donald Trump as an example for just about anything. He very skillfully exploited social media, and by making these outrageous statements. And it seems that some social media platforms, there's so many people, there's so much noise, there's so much competition for attention. That you have to be like Donald Trump to get through all that and generate a lot of publicity around it. So I would really urge you to not look to him. When you have a good idea and you're honest and the idea is good, and you make your pitch, I mean, that should come through. And, you know, as Nadia said, we're busier now than ever, and if you don't get a response right away, then follow up with another one. It was a pleasure working with you, and it was during the federal election. And talk about timing, being timely, took this wonderful selfie with Justin Trudeau just before he was elected, and promised him, you know, some product. Did you ever get it to him?
It's almost there.
Almost there, yeah. We'll do another story. Yeah, and I just think that's a really telling example, is to tie what you're doing to what's going on around you, and it's a good way to get coverage.
I think that it's finding that hook. What interests you? What will hook someone into a story, right? If you're reading a novel, what's the hook? What brings you in? And it's the same thing as journalists. We have to find that hook. So if you're very well aware of the hook, of what will get people's attention, that's going to be of use to you. I had mentioned those 5 motivators earlier before. If anybody did catch them, then we can tweet them out for sure. But the human element, I mean, if nothing else, if you have the human element of a story, then I think that catches people's attention. I mean, a single John, you would tweet something on Instagram about a gentleman who was at a retirement home, I think, and his bucket list was to go to a fire department and to ride in a fire truck. And he's 90 years old, and that was one of his things on his bucket list. And what a great human element to that. It just gives me shivers just kind of saying that story. I wish I could have done that story. Yeah, exactly, the spidey senses of just this little old man, you know, wanting to fulfill a bucket list check mark of riding on a fire truck. And that's the human element. So if you can find the human element, or if you can, when you're pitching your startup or your business, if you can kind of make some partnerships so that you can create a human element, then that'll help too.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think people have this perception that we're just out to ruin lives and write the worst things possible and make you all scared and upset all the time. And of course, like, you know, we're going to have to write about Donald Trump and his effect on the Canadian immigration system and things like that, because those are things that people are interested in. But you know, like Nadia said, it's about finding that hook and the human angle. So, I mean, Jim is still an entrepreneur in Guelph, took in 50 Syrian refugees, and he sponsored them. So stories like that will get a lot of attention because they're good stories, and they're stories about you being a good person. And if you know your product, you know your company, like, you'll have no problem getting any attention. It's just about telling it in the right way. Like, you don't need to start like doing MMA in the street to get attention. Like, you can just do good and learn how to tell that story.
I think that's a very apt way to end it. I think that the level of authenticity. Oh, okay, I'll grab you. I think the key here is whatever you're doing, it has to come from a place of authenticity and integrity. I think that is because a journalist is a cynical person. They're trained to be a critical thinker, and they're going to see through something that is strictly for a publicity stunt. The other thing I will say is that, you know, for the human story, you have to really do a little navel gazing and be willing to be a little vulnerable. You know, perhaps that means talking about, we had a startup that came through here, Renemy, where he was battling testicular cancer. But it was an amazing story. I think, Sarah, you and I have talked about that one in the past. So, you know, he was very open and willing to talk about his journey. So that's the kind of thing that people are obviously going to respond to.
Just a bit of a tactical question. You were talking about not wanting to do any sort of revisions after the fact. And in such a digital world where that follow link means so much from an authoritative site, how would you tell someone to approach? Do I talk to the reporter beforehand asking for the link within the article? Or is it something after the fact that I could say, hey, I wrote this great article on me, but I didn't get a link to my website. Would that be possible to do?
We do it almost as a matter of course, so you don't have to ask for it. But the problem is, be careful what you ask for. Make sure your website's, exactly what you want, what you need, and that it's working properly. Because we put a link to a site, and the editor and the copy editor will check it. But if there are problems beyond that, once it's published, it could be very embarrassing for you if it's going to some crazy place.
When's the best time to contact you? And I think I heard kind of like maybe 9 a.m., 8 to 9 a.m., or is it 8, 9 at night to send that first email? And secondly, do you feel like if you send something by Twitter and you just give me the 140 characters for what I'm about, that's a better way to contact me?
Yeah, like 9 a.m., like between 9 and 10 a.m. for me, because like that's when like that's when like I'm on the streetcar and I'm looking for news and I'm making sure that that's happening. Yeah, and like just as early as possible is probably the best way. Usually like I just personally for my own mental well-being, I'll try to shut down around 6 and not look at emails for a few hours, and then I'll go back and I'll check my emails again and be like, okay, this is happening. Twitter DMs are good too, just because like it's very much like Facebook Messenger and I can just get to it and I can just be like no or yes, and it's very easy for me. So yeah, like I think like usually in the morning that's a pretty decent time.
And sorry, day of the week.
Day of the week?
Tuesday
like,
is better or Saturday?
There's not really a specific day. Like Saturday and Sunday is just like, I mean, you can, although like I don't prefer it just because it's like, I have a life too. Don't even, like Friday at 8 p.m. it's like I'm probably on my 5th mimosa. Just don't. Like, like I'm probably not even a remember, so.
Again, it goes back to knowing the publication. She may have different requirements than say a news operation that's going 7 days a week. I can't tell you how many communications people call us at 11:30, right before a 12 o'clock show. All of our resources, or when they plan public relations, they plan events, and it's right in the middle of our show. So knowing that each publication or each news outlet, we have a show at noon, 6, and 11:30. So knowing that you should not be calling an hour before each one. Really, we have people calling us 15 minutes before 12 o'clock, 15 minutes, or a crunch time, and we're like, yeah, okay, bye. Unfortunately, it's the deadline business, right? And we don't have as much attention or may not be willing to listen to whatever your pitch is. So from a broadcast industry perspective is knowing what shows they put out and avoiding those times. Downtimes for us in the business, again, are in the morning, or in the morning before 10 o'clock. And then after the show from like 1 till 3, that would be a good time. If you're looking to get coverage on something, then you may want to consider doing something on the weekend to get your feet wet too, to get something started. If you're having you've got some story, you can say, hey, we're available, making that contact, that relationship with that reporter and saying, I know my story didn't get covered this week, but I'm willing and I'm around this weekend to talk about it. You may end up being the top story or close to it on a weekend news, especially when you're starting out and getting that kind of feel for it and stuff. So it's really knowing your publication and knowing the kind of output that they put, and don't call around showtime.
I think the answer to your question is it depends on when you would like a story in the paper. And is it timed around something that's happening with your startup? More notice is better. And I like to do my interviews in the morning, any time before noon. My early afternoons are spent writing, and I'll go sometimes 3 hours from noon to 3 o'clock, 3:30, where I don't answer the phone and I don't look at emails because I'm writing a story for the next day's publication. So it's better to even send the email out overnight, and then I'll see it in the morning. If you want to speak to me, you can call me a message on the phone, which is now probably one of the least effective. But if you say I send you an email following up with a phone message and I'm available for the next hour and a half at this number in case you want to do the story today, that's useful. Because of the cutbacks, our paper is printed in Hamilton now, and doing a lot of the work, so our deadlines are earlier now than they have ever been. So that's why I say I like to get a lot of work done in the morning, and then I shut down, go dark almost, except for my writing for about 3 or 4 hours in the afternoon. The weekend is interesting. When I started out actually as a stringer for the Globe and Mail many moons ago, and I learned that Mondays are just a waste then, because all of the reporters who are on staff, they take the weekends off, and then you wind up with these really, the Monday newspapers are just starved of interesting content, so bear that in mind. If you have an interesting story and you want to time it around getting it in on a Monday paper, that's a good idea. And same as summer times and Christmas time too. The more notice, the better, no matter what time of the year.
Yeah, exactly like you were saying, the Monday paper and when there's holiday weekend papers, then even internally I tend to pitch small business stories. Often they aren't news pegged, more featurey stuff. So I can roll it in, and that's the best window to get into print. As you get through the week, what you get is reporters don't mind holding a story for a day away from whatever the news peg is, or they're still working on it, but they don't want to hold it overnight. And a Saturday paper is pre-planned generally. So it's increasingly harder to get into the paper. Thursday and Fridays generally, I don't even pitch my own stories to go in there because I know it's so hard to get in there. And time of day, yeah, you don't want to walk around the Globe and Mail and try to chat to people around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. If you go to their desk, they'll be like, go away. So, those are just not the times to talk to people. I mean, I'm an editor, so I have a little bit more flexibility, and I look at stuff, whenever. But I think if you're dealing with a reporter, try to hit them up in the morning, early in the week is your best bet.
I just want to thank the panel again. This is